Welcome back to the In the Company of Friends podcast. I'm your host, Adam Alloway, back with the second installment of the series. As we near close to Thanksgiving break, all I can think about are the great words from the late Ozzy Osbourne, "Mama, I'm coming home." Today we have a very important guest. He is an expert in our nation's founding. He holds a PhD in government from Georgetown University and his postdoctoral fellowship at Brown University. He was a political aide, consultant, and writer in Washington, D.C. for nearly 2 decades. He served as the president and founder of Content Communications, LLC, advising members of the President's Cabinet, members of Congress, and other political leaders. He is the author of 4 books. He has 2 pet greyhounds. He is the 17th president of Assumption University, President Greg Weiner. President Weiner, thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
I want to talk about, it is Tuesday, so how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I was at the football game at Bentley, which we came up a little bit short, but fought hard, and now into the week.
Good. It's a little bit cold out. I know we're getting close to Thanksgiving break, and we're getting close to the finals, so I know the tensions are a little bit hot on campus, but I think everybody is going to be relieved once the finals are done. So today I want to go about, I know I have a couple questions to ask you here related to the Center for Civic Friendship. And I know it was it your idea of introducing it, or was it a collaborative idea?
I think it originated with me, but was a collaborative idea.
Okay.
Quickly, in terms of filling it out and filling in the details.
Okay. So to somebody who has never heard of the Center for Civic Friendship, how would you explain it to them?
I would explain it to them as that civic friendship is a particular kind of friendship. It's the friendship of citizens. And it's a friendship grounded in the Augustinian idea that we have common purposes. We don't agree about everything, but if we have if we have a sense of common purpose, then disagreeing or engaging in conversation about difficult topics actually becomes productive, not just polite.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think it's a newer program, or I think I'm a freshman, and there's about 20 members that we have, and we engage in. There was a couple civic symposiums, which is like a professor, featured professor that comes in, and about a group of 10 to 15 kids discuss, somewhat not controversial topics, but just important topics to discuss, like especially in this time of age where, everybody's questioning how everybody talks to each other. And we kind of engage in more of like collaborative, like, just like, there's some opposition. It's not all like, yep, I agree. Yep. There's some opposition. There's some, figuring out, but politely always. So why do you think now is a good time to launch the program?
Well, there's been a lot of talk on college campuses, as you know, about freedom of inquiry and how much space there is for disagreement, and that criticism comes from all directions of the political spectrum. So what's been less focused on, and I think is really important, is what is it that makes disagreement, and not just disagreement, but conversation productive.
Yeah.
And I think the sense is that if there are shared goals. So I will give you an example. That if you look at some of the protests that we've seen on college campuses over the last couple of years, they're about the most intense, controversial topics you can imagine,
yeah.
and not surprising that there are intense disagreements about them. If you've been in a chemistry lab or a biology lab, and the question is, what are the results of this experience? People don't typically, as far as I know, start yelling at each other or coming to blows or whatever else.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And that's that everyone trusts they're trying to accomplish the same thing. They're trying to figure out what the experiment is telling them. And if we can get to a place as citizens where we trust that we are trying to accomplish the same things or share roughly the same commitments, then we trust one another to disagree, to handle controversial topics and so forth.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I know you worked in D.C. for a little bit, or how many years was that you worked in D.C. for?
About 20.
Okay, so you've been around the block, some would say.
A while ago, but yes, the block has changed.
So how was that? In the perspective of civic friendship, right? Working in DC, you talk about a biology lab and different setting than DC. How would you talk about DC in keeping in mind like civic friendship and ideals like that?
So I worked when I worked in government. It was mostly in the Senate, and I went on and did some consulting, which is a little bit of a different thing. But the Senate, which has certainly changed some since the mid '90s when I started working there. I think very much the culture of the Senate used to embody civic friendship.
Yeah.
So there was. Not among everybody. You had people on the far right or the far left or wherever else who didn't necessarily get along with or compromise with one another. But there was a good core at the center where there were folks saying, here's a problem, how are we going to figure it out? And they didn't mind disagreeing with each other because there was, again, that foundation of trust that we're trying to accomplish the same thing. We don't disagree about everything, but roughly speaking, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. And I think in the Senate that has eroded some that culture, and the culture of political institutions matters quite a lot.
Yeah. I know. I mean, what if you had a date? Would you say COVID was a big part of it, or would you be able to put a date on when things started turning around a little bit south?
So let me say this. I always used to say that if you work in the Senate, the day after you stop working in the Senate, you have to start saying it was better in my day. Yeah. So we do tend to romanticize the past. Yeah. So the periods in the let's say the post-war period of the 1940s on, when we often think of as the heyday of the Senate, there were also ugly things going on in terms of civil rights and filibustering. The Civil Rights Act and so on and so forth. So I don't think there was ever a magical period. Yeah. I do think there's an issue that is less COVID than what a friend of mine, Yuval Levin, who's a very distinguished scholar of the Constitution and of institutions. The problem that he identifies, the challenge, is that institutions like Congress have become less formative than performative, so that when you run for Congress, for example, you're expanding your Twitter following, you're getting more appearances on this or that cable network, and it does become more of a performance than the actual work. So I think that's less COVID than a change in the media landscape. Yeah.
So, the Senate, DC, right? I've been to DC maybe once, but did you live down in DC?
We did. We lived on, when my wife and I first got married, we were living on Capitol Hill. Okay. And then we lived in Northern Virginia for a long time.
Nice. I know it gets pretty, the blossom trees, have you ever seen them down there?
The cherry blossoms are gorgeous. And DC has changed a lot. I think, by the way, not all for the better. It's become it's one of the wealthiest cities in the country, metropolitan areas in the country, and that's not all a good thing. It suggests that there's a lot of money to be made off of taxes that other people are paying, and so forth.
Yeah. So to talk about Assumption, right? How is Assumption different from other universities in the term to being receptive to the concept of civic friendship?
So friendship, understood deeply, I think, is very important to Assumption's identity. Augustine talks about friendship, the Confessions, which is the one book that every student at Assumption reads, or as I sometimes say, is assigned to read.
Two classes.
Right. Yep. Is really a story about, it's a story about many things, but in many ways it's about friendship. And there's a wonderful passage at the end of the Confessions where Augustine reflects on the value of friendship in discovering truth, and that his friends would laugh together, but they would also correct one another and support one another, and so on and so forth. So I think a deep understanding of friendship, and of friendships of particular types. So that there's we see these in Aristotle and Cicero and some of the great theorists of friendship, that you and I being friends, or let's say you and your roommate being friends, and you're sharing a space together, and you go out, you do things together, and have fun together, that's an important kind of friendship. The friendship of citizens is a particular kind of friendship, and it's a friendship that's based on shared aims. That's a deeply Augustinian concept that we see coming out in the Confessions, but also in his masterwork, which is the City of God.
Yeah, yeah. I know a couple in my theology class, I'm reading the Confessions, and then at the same time, I think we're reading book 1 through 7 now, and then a couple different parts is the City of God and my political justice class too. So every student is pretty. I would say they're pretty aware of Augustine. But what would your future vision be in regard to civic friendship? Maybe that's here. Maybe we could maybe here. I know it's brand new here. What would your future be here? And then after that, what would your future be? Maybe see across other campuses around us, or maybe in the nation.
I think the vision for the Center for Civic Friendship is both inward-facing and outward-facing. So I think Assumption students are very unique in a lot of ways. This is not a campus that gets consumed by current events. I think in a way that's very healthy. We tend to be focused on learning and going to class and other things, having fun and so forth. So I think Assumption's campus is a place where we can really create a replicable, scalable model of what building friendships of a particular type really looks like. In terms of the outward-facing component, I see the center as a place that is encouraging dialogue, scholarship, advocacy for civic friendship, and modeling what civic friendship is about. And I think that's something the country really needs, and I think that's a real opportunity for Assumption to establish a national reputation in that area.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Assumption, the campus at least, I mean, I've been here for, not even a semester, and I would say that it's a different feeling than what I would have suspected. It is a smaller campus, but, versus state schools where you have, tens of thousands of kids, I really like the closer-knit community, and I also like being able to kind of know professors by name, and they know me too. You know what I mean? And the program, at least here, is about roughly 20 members with a couple kids that come in and listen in on discussions, and you know all of their names. You can. Right. There's not been a day here that I've been walking either down to the dining hall or to Chuck's or back to the dorm, and I've not seen somebody that I know, and I haven't said hi.
So I think that is a really important condition for civic friendship. And Alexis de Tocqueville talks about citizenship starting at the local level, the robust kind of citizenship. An example I've used with students before is in The Federalist, Madison says, there's a famous line that if every Athenian were a Socrates, every Athenian assembly would still have been a mob. Because there's a dynamic of anonymity where it's much more conducive to just shouting at each other or accusing one another, so on and so forth. And the example I use is I ask students, how many of you have ever yelled at a referee at a sporting event? And everybody has.
Yeah.
Not me, but other people have.
Yeah.
And I'll ask, okay, well, if that referee or umpire, whomever it was sitting across from you at the dinner table, how many of you would yell at him or her then? Now, I knew I was in New England when the answer was, because I'd use this example at other institutions, but I knew I was in New England when the answer was, it depends on the call.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when we see others' humanity and we see them as individuals, it becomes much harder to shout and accuse and be degrading and insulting when you're dealing with the actual human person across from you.
Yeah. I would definitely agree. So what? With that being said, I mean, what led you to Assumption first, and then what led you to being the president of Assumption?
Gosh. Assumption has always had a very unique approach to teaching political science that was very appealing to me. Everyone in the political science department is deeply grounded in political theory.
Yep.
So I taught American politics, and that which Professor Staub teaches now. But my graduate education was in American political thought. So when political science at Assumption, when you begin to teach foreign relations, you don't start with a textbook that was written 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You start with Thucydides, for example. And that was very appealing to me because having worked in politics, I think there's a real lack of appreciation, and this is true in the academy too, the power of enduring ideas, that current events change, just like in other fields, technology changes, but there are ideas that stick around for a long time. Being president, I really enjoy. It wasn't on my bucket list of career aspirations, but I became provost which is the vice president for academic affairs in, I think, 2019. And I would say one thing led to another, and I really enjoy the work. It's not something that 10, 15 years ago I set out to do, but it's been very rewarding.
Yeah. I mean, I think that at least the campus and at least the staff would speak highly of you, which is always good to hear from, administration. There's instances where even at schools and stuff, the teachers or the students are like, oh, I don't know, or even there's like an intimidation thing where it's like, the principal's here, you know what I mean? But you walk into the dining hall and it's like, President Weiner's here, you know what I mean?
So I'm not intimidating you.
No, not intimidation.
Well, I gotta try harder.
Yeah.
I mean, Assumption's a very community. We're citizens of a community. I think that's part of why the concept works here. And of different opinions, and people disagree with me on a variety of things, as they should. But I do think there's a basic level of trust that we are all trying to move the institution forward and move the mission of the institution forward, even when we disagree about the best way of doing so.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up, our civic friendship and Center for Civic Friendship questions, and I'll leave you with, this question before maybe we get into some small talk questions. If you had one word to describe Assumption, what would it be?
One word.
One word.
And that word can carry a lot of meaning.
It can carry a lot of meaning.
I think I would say friendship, but it's important to understand that friendship, in the way Augustine uses it, in the way we mean it, is more than simply hanging out together and getting on together. It's sharing. It's a sense of shared purpose. Yeah,
I would agree. I think friendship is important. I think, the Center for Civic Friendship, we moved in a couple days earlier, and I know I talked about this in the previous episode, and we met a couple of my friends and a couple of the cohort members. We seem like we're all dormed in Worcester, which I think is another great idea. Is like, the Center for Civic Friendship, like, you're on campus with, a decent amount of kids, and maybe you see them, or maybe they're dormed in your building, but we're dormed in a non-freshman building. We're dormed in a sophomore building. So it kind of gives us like, hey, like, we're the freshmen here, so now you kind of have to know them. And another thing is, my roommate was in the program and a couple other students, and it wasn't weird, but it was unpredictable how good of friends that we became in that short kind of, it was Wednesday, I know we moved in, and the seniors were coming back, I think that following Monday. And in that like little nick of time, like, we became close friends, and it was almost like second nature. Like, we were going down to the dining hall, we were going, we're hanging out and stuff like that. And it was unpredictable because, everybody's like, those are the best friends you meet are in college. And I'm like, I'll see for myself.
So that's been really important, and credit to Dr. Ryan for bringing folks in early. But remember also what you did in that pre-orientation was read about friendship and talked about friendship and what citizenship is and so forth. So it's a friendship bonded not just in knowing people, but in sharing those interests, and that's a deeper kind of friendship.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and I know friendship might look like watching a movie of some sorts, and you watch movies, right? Frequently, do you when you have the time, will you sit down and watch a movie?
Once in a while.
Once in a while. Are you a fan of comedy movies, perchance? Do you have a favorite comedy movie, or the funniest movie you possibly ever seen?
Funniest movie.
Yeah.
There's probably no way to answer this without getting myself into trouble. I really like from a writing point of view, there's it started as a playwright and is now as well known for movies. A guy named David Mamet, who I wouldn't say comedies, but a lot of wit in his writing.
Yeah, yeah, and just to kind of get a little bit personal. I know we're getting we're done. We talked about the Civic Friendship and the Center for Civic Friendship, but
how personal are we going to get?
Just
okay. Go. I trust you.
Yeah.
We're friends.
Yeah, we're friends. What you listen to music at all?
I do.
Do you have a favorite band or a favorite singer, perchance?
I do. George Strait, who I grew up in Texas, and actually my wife and I and son. We have one son still living at home. Saw George Strait this past summer, and when I was consulting years ago through a connection, I got to meet him backstage at a big show.
Wow!
And I grew up not far from where he got his start.
Yeah. So that might answer my next question. Who's the most famous person you've ever met, hands down?
Most famous person in any realm.
Any realm.
I mean, one thing about working in politics is young people, and I started working in the Senate, I think I was 23 maybe, is you get to be around a lot of very well-known people, to be close to, I did press and communications work, so you I would say you're around very, presidents and senators and so on and so forth. So I hesitate to say met in the sense of we weren't buddies, but that is one of the privileges of that kind of work is you get to be around a lot of folks like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was as good as meeting George Strait, but
George Strait's that's a big.
You know George Strait?
Yeah, he was torn with was he torn with Chris Stapleton?
He was.
Yeah, George Strait's good. I listened to Chris Stapleton and country too. So Texas, right? Yeah. I mean, versus the Texas warmth down there versus the little flurries in the beginning of November up here? How does that differ?
I kind of find it charming. I still find the snow charming. In Texas so I grew up in sort of south central Texas, and if one flake fell out of the sky, which was very rare, everything shut down. And the reason everything shut down was not so much were the roads safe as, hey, get out there and see the snow because you're never going to see it again. You're never going to see it again. So I find it charming. One thing that took some getting used to moving here was that not every place, as you know, on campus and in the region, air conditioning is becoming more pervasive, but is not exactly pervasive.
Yeah.
So when we moved here, the realtor said, "Oh, it's warm 2 weeks a year," which is not true.
Yeah.
And so that took some getting used to, but we like it here.
Managed, yeah. All right, President Weiner, thank you very much.
Thank you
I
for having me.
appreciate your time. Thank you.